Hi guys, my name's Estatira and I'm a college student at Georgia Tech. I'm here at Georgia Tech's community garden. Bees are the baseline of ecosystems, not only by acting as a food source for other animals, but also by providing food for other creatures like us by pollinating fruits, vegetables, and other plants. Pollinators are essential for growing produce and pollinate over 80% of plants in the world. Without bees, we wouldn't be able to grow most of the food we eat, and the plants would produce fewer seeds, causing fewer plants and disrupting the equilibrium in the environment. As a community, we need to work harder to maintain our native pollinator population. There are so many different types of pollinators, including bees, butterflies, wasps, moths, beetles, flies, birds, bats, hummingbirds, and it's all helped by the external forces such as wind. In this video, we'll be focusing on native bee species. Native bee populations have been declining at an alarming rate. There are many reasons for this, including major loss of habitat. As the world progresses, we need more and more space for our inventions and growing populations. Unfortunately, we end up destroying their habitat, which limits their natural resources, by reducing the number of flowering plants, which are rich in nectar, and also by limiting native plants, which leads to their decline. There are not enough native plants in places where pollinators can get the resources they need to maintain their numbers, and the lack of biodiversity of plants is not helping. The lack of flowering plants and native plants, which have been replaced with non-flowering, neat-looking shrubs, makes it hard for pollinators to survive. Humans have made it hard for them to get pollen not only by using more shrubs, but by genetically modifying plants for beauty. A good example of this is the rose, whose petals used to be more open but over the years has been modified to be more closed and less valuable to pollinators. Look at this boring field with no flowers. This is like a desert to a bee. Now look at these clovers which cover large areas like that. These are really good for maintaining populations. Despite construction and expansion, which destroy most bee-rich environments, bees can live in the city and survive. There are many organizations that study bees in the city, including the Metro Atlanta Beekeepers Association and Georgia Tech's own Urban Honeybee Project. However, even through gardens with flowering plants, there is another threat which affects pollinators: pesticides. Pesticides poison and kill bees by getting into their system through the plants and actually harming them. If you are planting plants, you may see a warning on the tags, which warn you not to use pesticides on those plants. These plants tend to be better for pollinators, which is why they do not want you to use pesticides on them. The other, and possibly the most important reason why the populations are decreasing, is the lack of awareness. What can you do to help? My team and I actively worked with the community to fix this issue, and you at home can help the cause too. One of the things you can do is to plant more plants and create a more pollinator-friendly environment. We worked together with the Milton Library to transform this space to this. We took out all the dead bushes and the dead tree. We then planted a new tree and around 20 new plants. The plants are not fully grown in yet, but after they're settled, we're hoping for the area to be bright and busy with pollinators. After just planting a few, we already noticed a few more pollinators in the area. Here are a few tricks you can use to plant your garden at home. 1. Plant native as much as possible. Not only are they hardier, but they help increase our native populations. You can check what plants are native to your area. We found that these plants were a little harder to find, but if you look for them, you're sure to find them, and lots of businesses specialize in the sale of these plants. 2. Plant more trees. A flowering tree is the best thing you can plant for pollinators because there are more flowers per tree than a bush or shrub. This is also the thing you should be pushing your community to do. The trees not only provide a larger number of flowers in the same space of shrubs, but also are easier to be placed around cities and government-owned spaces. 3. When planting plants, pick perennial plants. This means the plants will continue to come back and last longer than annual plants, which do not come back after the season is done. Because we wanted our garden to last, we used exclusively perennial plants and paid attention to the labels to find what plants worked best for our space. Our conditions were full sun, and we tried to get as many drought-resistant plants possible. In my garden at home, I don't need to plant perennial plants all the time because I work on it every year, but I won't be able to maintain the garden at the library. Keep these things in mind when you're building your garden. 4. Do not use pesticides, and encourage others to stop using pesticides. The best thing you can do to stop the use of pesticides is to let your community know, whether that be by spreading awareness on social media, in person, writing letters to different areas or government officials. Spreading the word is key. There are many pending bills on banning certain pesticides due to the neurotoxins in them. You can search pesticide recipes on YouTube, and plenty of better options come up. 5. By planting these gardens, you're providing for more than just bees. You're allowing for more pollinators to use your garden, so look out for butterflies and birds. One of the coolest things is you can tell which plants are good for pollinators even at the store because you'll see more pollinators on them. You can also hear the difference. You can add extra structures like bee houses and hummingbird feeders to increase the amount of pollinators you're helping. Even though birds are pollinators, it's best not to put bird feeders in your garden because bees can also be a really tasty snack. Planting is not the only way to provide for pollinators. Most native bees are actually solitary bees, which means they do not have hives. Most people are uneducated about these bees and think that every bee has a hive, but that's simply not true. A lot of these bees actually burrow in the ground. One way that my team helped these bees was to build bee houses. With the population of native bees decreasing, these houses can help slow the decline of populations. The bee hotel mimics the reeds that bees like mason bees and leafcutter bees will naturally nest in. It's more successful to build a bee hotel for mason bees. They help create successful reproductive cycles for solitary bees by providing shelter which protects against predators, harmful chemical substances, and weather conditions. Bees can lay their eggs in these, and with the protection they provide, help increase the number of native and solitary bees. Bee houses look like this, and there are many ways to make one. We used to design by Ugly Duckling House, but you can buy them or make them from recycled materials. We'll include a few links in the description below. Here are a few tricks to remember. Blue bee houses are better for bees. Try to use blue and purple and avoid warm colors like red that may signify danger. I actually recently saw one of these in the Georgia Tech community garden, and I got the chance to explain to my friends what it was. As I've continued educating myself on pollinators, I find more events and joined communities that advocate for pollinator conservation. The conservation communities are large, and I've made many connections so far. I plan to keep educating others, and I hope that this video and the garden will help educate others and inspire them to get involved. Now let's remember the things we can do to be helpful. You can do all of these things at your home. 1. Build a bee garden, even if it's just in your backyard. 2. Advocate for pollinator-safe practices. 3. Plant more native plants to save the native species. 4. Plant more trees because they are the most efficient way to create food sources due to their plentiful flowers. 5. Avoid the use of pesticides. 6. Build bee houses. And 7. Join programs in your area, such as Georgia Tech's Urban Honeybee Project, and look out for pollinator events in the area. If more attention is not brought to this issue, we will lose access to agricultural products and billions in agricultural revenue as our ecosystem continues to suffer. Environmental systems are becoming more and more unstable, so it's important that we get involved now. Bee loss impacts everyone, but together we can end the bee apocalypse. Thanks for sticking around. Please click the link in our bio and take a quick survey.